Hey guys, what is happening, and welcome to another episode of Anime Metal Viking with me, your host Viking, and today I'm going to be reacting to the brand new adaptation of Berserk, otherwise known as Berserk 2016. Now, a lot of other YouTubers have added to the list of complaints about this new adaptation. They've added the story to the list of complaints. Now, I'm going to be honest and upfront to all of you before I get any further into this. I have not read the manga. And it's not because I'm disinterested in it in any way. It's just that when it comes to reading comic books of any form, I prefer having the actual thing in my hands. You can call me a bit of a book purist if you will. I really dislike reading on a screen. Even reading internet articles is a pain. So yeah, when it comes to reading, I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to having the actual thing in your hands, and trying to read long-running books or comic books or manga series via the web or on your computer just doesn't do it for me. And manga is quite hard to come by in the country where I live, so yeah, until I actually find actual Berserk books, I don't think I'll be reading the manga anytime soon. So yeah, I haven't read the manga, but I have watched the original 1997 adaptation, and I am currently in process of watching the Golden Age films. But now from obviously at the same time watching this new Berserk series, I only have two issues with the show. So like I said, I can't really complain about the story because I haven't read the manga. All I know is that according to another YouTuber, they've skipped out on a lot of events that took place from the moment Guts was rescued by the Skeleton Knight up until the point which episode 1 starts. They skipped out a whole bunch of that. And decided to start at some random point where they think where the studio thought it would be a good place to start. That's all I know so far. And also apparently there were some complaints about Guts' behavior. I personally didn't really notice. So yeah, I can't speak for that side of things. However, I'm going to be addressing two of the main things that I really dislike about this new adaptation. And these two things being specifically the animation, for obvious reasons, and the soundtrack. Now, I know I just said obvious reasons for the animation, but I'm going to further elaborate on this since this is a reaction video. Okay, so firstly, the animation. I have to agree with just about every YouTuber who has spoken about this. The animation is atrocious. The Golden Age movies, from what I've seen so far, the Golden Age movies were one thing. I mean, granted, there was a lot of this 2.5D animation used in it, but there were a lot of scenes that had regular 2D animation. I know it, excuse me, I know it makes the films seem inconsistent with the animation, which is true, but at least we did get some really good 2D scenes, and not every single scene was done in 2.5D. And I mean, the way the character models were done, etc., at least the visuals were of a fantasy story and were pretty to look at. However, with this adaptation, the character models look like they just took sketches from the manga or whatever, tweaked it just ever so slightly to fit the character models, and left it in pencil, didn't bother to ink them, and the coloring looks as if it's trying to be some really artsy indie comic book of some sort, and it just does not fit the animation style overall. Because I mean, I can understand if you use that kind of animation, those kind of drawings, those character models. I can understand if you use that if you go pure 2D. I mean, we've had a lot of 2D animes where stuff looks sketchy, and we've had some bizarre art styles and so forth, and it's worked because it's done in regular 2D animation. But then we get this, and it doesn't fit with these 3D puppets that the 2D models are kind of wrapped around like a foil. And the 3D models, the movement is clunky, it's bulky, it feels so fake. And a lot of people compared the movements of the characters and the frame rates to the games. I haven't played any of the games, but I looked up a bunch of trailers for the games, and I had to agree with them. It really has the same feel to it, and it just feels fake, like it has no substance. I know I'm probably going to piss off a lot of people who actually are a fan of this animation style and are loving it so far, but for me personally, if you're going to do a show, you either do 2D or 3D. Don't go for the in-between, because the in-between result is never good. And I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, but Ruby is doing a good job of that. Yes, but if you look at Ruby, it's not trying in terms of the art style and the animation style to be something humongously epic. What makes it epic is its story and just overall how well it's directed. This is trying to be take itself too seriously. I know Berserk is a serious story. Now, I'm not talking the story, but the animation is trying to take itself too seriously, and they are trying to make it have a flow of as if they have live actors there, but it just feels absolutely fake, horrendously fake. So I definitely don't enjoy this animation style, and I don't enjoy the direction that they decided to go with these character models. Because these character models would fit a purely done 2D animation, but trying to make it fit with these 3D puppets, it just doesn't work. At least not for me anyway. If any of you out there like this animation style, that's fine. I'm not saying you cannot like it. This is just my humble opinion on the matter. And then we get into the soundtrack. What can be said about the soundtrack? I mean, we all know, or hopefully all of us know, we all know that Susumu Hirasawa, the genius behind the soundtrack of the original adaptation, and who gave us quite a number of tracks on the Golden Age films, he decided it was best that he didn't want the job composing the music for this, and granted, he gave one song. I think there was one other song, if I remember correctly, from Glass Reflections video about upcoming anime for this season, if I remember correctly. But for the most part, it's like literally 99% of it is done by this new composer. I'm not familiar with this composer's work. I'm not so sure whether this composer has worked on previous anime like prior to this, or this is their first time ever. But clearly this composer has no idea what kind of music fits specific genres of fantasy. Now, you may be thinking to yourselves, well, why are you limiting, why are you speaking about limiting, musical styles to fantasies and stuff? You should break boundaries and stuff. Yes, I do agree, you should break boundaries when it comes to soundtracks and stuff. But the music for this does not fit in any way whatsoever. Many reasons being because, I mean, yes, we do get the odd inserts of some music from the Golden Age films, which it's alright. So, I mean, those tracks were pretty good, and I mean, it's nice to hear something that actually sounds like it fits with the show here and there during the episodes. But then when you get this I don't know. It sounds like this guy's trying to do industrial metal of some sort, like a really the light core version of industrial metal, and it just doesn't fit. Because for those of you who listen to industrial music, whether it be pure industrial metal, EBM, and all this sort of stuff, you will notice that all the groups that do this kind of music and just the overall imagery and the sound of this music makes you automatically think of, you know, cyberpunk and sci-fi. And then here we get this guy trying to compose cyberpunk and sci-fi music, well, sounding music for a dark fantasy set in the time of the Tudors, and it just doesn't fit. Really doesn't fit. I know he's trying. This composer's trying to make it fit the Guts' badass personality, but as much as it would work in an AMV, I personally don't think it works for the soundtrack, for the tone of the show, for the setting of the show. It really doesn't. Me personally, if I wanted to compose a soundtrack that was set for fantasy that is set in these times and so forth, and I wanted to use metal, I would personally pick genres of metal that obviously go hand in hand with this kind of thing. And if you even look at the metal bands from these genres I am about to list, you'll see just by the way they dress and their album arts and so forth that they sing about these kinds of fantasies all the time. Their lyrical content is based on the works of like Tolkien and George R.R. Martin and so forth. So where this industrial stuff comes from, I really have no clue. Now, before I list these genres, I would like to point out the songs don't sound bad. I'm not saying the songs sound bad. I'm criticizing the composer for his choice in music style to go with this kind of fantasy. If you sit without watching the show and you just listen to the tracks on their own, you will hear a lot of good ones. You really will. But when you listen to them, you will most likely not think of Berserk unless soundtracks don't affect you so much and you listen to it and you're like, I recognize it from that scene in the anime. Anyway, as I was saying, genres that I would use if I wanted to use metal within the soundtrack would have to be genres like power metal. It goes without saying, because power metal is generally based around these kinds of fantasies and Tolkien-like fantasies. Symphonic metal, bands like, you know, Nightwish and stuff. Obviously you wouldn't get Nightwish to do things on the soundtrack, but I mean, you know, that kind of a style, like styles that symphonic metal style of Nightwish, Delane, and Epica and so forth. Symphonic black metal like Dimmu Borgir or one of those kinds of groups. Especially it would fit kind of well, since I mean Berserk is such a dark fantasy that's music that's as dark and darkly symphonic as that would fit symphonic death metal and even melodic death metal, although it would have to really depend on the band. Like obviously a band like Soilwork or In Flames will definitely not fit this kind of a thing. A band like Before the Dawn definitely would. If you go and listen to Before the Dawn's song, what's it called, Phoenix Rising, if you listen to the riff and the melody of that song, it sounds like a battle anthem. It sounds like people, you know, warriors on horseback charging into battle, and there's a big ass battle. That's the kind of sound you'd want for this thing if you were going to incorporate a modern genre like metal. However, this guy decided to take a totally opposite genre, and he thought it was going to be clever because of the juxtaposition and that it would match up with Guts' badassery, which it probably does, but I'm not feeling it. I'm really not feeling it, and it's just ludicrous, really. But at least its saving grace is the song "O Ashes" by Susumu Hirasawa, which is usually played at the end after the ending theme while they're doing the preview for the next episode. So yeah, but I can't wait for the full version of that song to be released, because from what I can hear with the song so far, it sounds fantastic as always, because this is Susumu Hirasawa we're talking about. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about this anime. But other than that, as shit as the animation is, in my opinion, I'm still going to watch this show, because I mean, it's Berserk. I'd like to see the direction where they go with this, and whether it's good or not, it might still in the end persuade me to actually go and read the manga, despite the fact that I just said earlier that I don't like reading online. But if reading online is the only way I can get a hold of this, then I suppose I'll just have to grit my teeth and bear with it. So yeah, that's most likely going to happen. But anyway, I'm still going to watch this anime. All I could say is that I hope in the future, if Berserk gets another adaptation starting from square one, and I know we're probably sick of seeing the prologue arc numerous times, but if another studio comes along and decides to do it from square one, sticks to the source material 100%, and does a better job at the animation, and decides to make the show a little bit more than 26 episodes, like maybe makes it the same number of episodes as, say, D. Greyman or something like that, the original D. Greyman series, like 103 episodes or something of that sort, then I'm all for it. I really, really am. But for now, all I can say is I'm a bit disappointed that a fantasy series, a manga series as critically acclaimed as this, for being one of the best dark fantasy series ever written and drawn, is not getting an adaptation that does it justice. That's really the only disappointing part about all of this. And that's all I have to say regarding this show. What are your thoughts on this show? Do you like the animation style? Do you like the soundtrack? Do you think it fits? Whatever. Or don't, or you like me and you don't think it fits? You don't like the animation? Whatever. Please let me know in the comment section below. I will be glad to discuss it further with you guys. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you haven't done so already. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please don't forget to follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, and on DeviantArt. And that concludes this episode for today. I am Viking, and until next time, guys, have a kick-ass day.